Hey guys, this is Red Shadow, and I'm back with another monthly roundup video, this time for October 2021. And I'm doing this a week late, a week into November. I finally managed to find my motivation today. So that's good, because every once in a while when it comes to YouTube or a lot of other things that I do, I will get a bit stopped up, and then I need to figure out a way to purge whatever is in the way, the blockage that's in the way. And I finally did that. So, not a whole lot to cover for the month of October. I kind of meandered through September. Didn't get any game completions in September. Managed to get a couple for October. But I still found myself a few times just sort of excuse me, just sort of like not having any motivation or drive to do much of anything. But there were a couple of things that I did take care of in October. Or was it even... It may have not have even been in October. I was thinking I was still watching X-Files. Oh, no, it wasn't. I finished X-Files. What I did for viewing of any kind, didn't get any movies watched, but I watched through the entirety of the 14 episodes of Firefly and the Serenity movie. Well, Serenity was yesterday, so that's actually more for next month's monthly roundup. But I watched through the majority of Firefly. The reason for that is one of the things that I've gotten into on YouTube within the last, say, 2 years was watching people do music reactions. And unfortunately, regardless of whether a channel blows up or just maintains, kind of a minimal amount of viewers and views, it's not the YouTube algorithm, it's it's whatever the... Shoot, I can't even think of the wording for it now. It's these videos that have music in them, copywritten music. Some record companies, some record labels are incessant about taking anybody down, striking videos, taking ad revenue, whatever it is, so that channels either get... videos get blocked, they get chopped up, they get the audio muted out of them, they gimp the whole point of what these people are doing with these channels and the music, where they're trying to explore the music. They're trying to give their reactions either for first time viewing or listening, or their review of a song if it's something that they know. So the point is, when that starts to happen on these channels, they will often look for other things that they can do, other kinds of reactions that they can provide, and that usually brings them over to TV and movies. And there's a lot of people out there who haven't watched, classic movies from over the years, or people out there who are watching the newer TV shows like the MCU shows, the Game of Thrones, Squid Games, yada yada yada, all this stuff that's out there. So I either migrate over to their movie TV reactions, or of course you get recommended other channels, and I've stumbled into some channels that didn't do music reactions but were doing the TV shows and movies. And so within the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, I subscribed to a bunch of channels, and one of them was this girl whose channel name is Vicunia, Vkunia, and she was watching, she's younger, she's watching some of these older movies, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, and one day she posted up watching the first episode of Firefly, and I was like, cool, it's the first person that I have been watching on YouTube who watched Firefly all the way through. I've been watching it, I'd say, it wasn't just in October, it probably was back in September, or maybe even August, because her scheduling for it, it's only 14 episodes, but her scheduling for it was, at first it was like once a week, and even then, that's like ridiculous to put 3 months or more into that particular series. It's over so quick, and people usually love it, and they glom onto it real quick. But she was watching a lot of other things, and it just kind of came here and there. And then at the end, she did two episodes at the end with 3 episodes, 9, 10, 11, and 12, 13, 14, and then the movie. Anyway, the point isn't so much the reactor that I'm watching. It's that because she was watching it and I wanted to know her thoughts on it, I was like, it's been, I don't know how long it is. Some of these shows I watch every year, because Firefly is only 14 episodes and a movie, as opposed to, say, X-Files that's now 11 seasons and 2 movies. Castle was 8 seasons, Lost was 6 seasons, etc., etc. Firefly is not something I need much of an excuse to want to watch. And it's so good for the time that it is on the screen that I'm like, just let me watch it. So I think I've talked about Firefly multiple times. All I can really say here is just that it's fantastic. It's sad that it went away so quickly. I would love to see it be brought back. This is one of the shows I would love to see them come back and bring the crew who was still around and acknowledge that they're now, you don't have to go specifically the number of years, but we're looking at like almost 20 years now since the show was on the air. But you don't have to say that they're all 20 years older. You can say that they're 10 or 15. You can acknowledge that they're older. I'd love to see some of that time frame after the movie's events had happened, or because of stuff that happens in the movies, you could try to put it in between there, but like I said, you would be dealing with the age of the actors, and it's visible for most of them. But you could also just pick up 10, 15 years down the road and say, here's what everybody's doing. I would love to see that. I don't know that it'll ever happen. I don't know that everybody could be brought back for that. I don't know. Joss Whedon's got some controversy around him these days, so who knows what would happen. It may just literally be gone for good. But if it is, like I said, we have what we got, and it's great. So yeah, that was my viewing for the month. A majority of a rewatch of Firefly. As far as gaming is concerned, the main things that I can remember is that I beat and played Life is Strange 2 finally. That was a long time coming. Even replaying Life is Strange 1 and Before the Storm earlier this year was still earlier this year. It was in April. It was like March, April when I played those. So I finally jumped in and played Life is Strange 2. Now, Life is Strange 2 was not as good as those first 2, but it was good. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the new characters, this older brother, younger brother pairing, and the stuff that they were going through. Here's one of my observations for it. The first 2 games were a little bit more lighthearted and whimsical, despite the fact that they still dealt with some heavy issues in the first 2 games. But they still felt, if nothing else, hopeful. And Life is Strange 2 was not as much that. But it was still good. Now, I'm going to get into spoiler territory, so if you haven't played Life is Strange 2 and you're still watching this video, congrats to you for making it this far. But if you don't want to know about the ending of the game, then turn away now, because I'm going to spoil it. I played and got one ending due to a choice you make near the end, and then I went and did the other choice that was offered to me at that point to see what would happen there. So anyway, that's your warning. I'm going into the spoilers now. So you're on the run in this game because you control and play the older brother. The younger brother discovers that he has some telekinetic abilities. He can move things, lift things, throw things, catch things. Telekinesis, if you know what that is. But he's very, very young, and he doesn't know how to control it. And his brother has to try to help him with that. But they're on the run from the cops, because when the younger brother's powers manifest, was through a really... I didn't care much for the convoluted way that they introduced it. Well, not so much the way that they introduced it, but the reaction to it. Little brother goes outside because I think he was upset with big brother, and he gets into a little bit of a skirmish with their nasty neighbor next door, like a father-son pairing that are always treating these guys like shit. And little brother was dressed up like a zombie, and he must have went over and to mess with the guy next door and got his fake blood or something on this guy's shirt, and he's pissed off and yelling at the little brother. So big brother comes out. Yes, I am saying big brother and little brother because since it's been a month since I played the game, I've forgotten their damn names. But big bro comes out and tries to get in between it, and one thing leads to another, and I think big brother pushed this guy down and he fell. And I don't know if he landed on a rock, hit his head on the rock or something. But like this guy is down on the ground and he's like acting like he's coughing. And I don't know if he's having a damn seizure or some shit. And it just so happens that a police officer is driving by at that exact same time. So he gets out to check on things. What's going on here? Yada, yada, yada. It was an accident. The two brothers are fucking freaking out, having like an emotional breakdown. This other guy's laying down on the ground. Dad comes out. The fucking cop has pulled his gun. And in the stupidest thing, in my opinion, in the whole game, sad that it's right at the beginning, but this trigger-happy fucking cop shoots the dad because the dad has come out and is wanting to know what's going on. His sons are down on the ground crying. Cop with his gun out. And the dad's like, what's going on out here? And the cop shoots him. Fucking kills him. Little brother gets pissed off, kind of explodes in anger, and his telekinetic ability comes out. And it's like a miniature explosion happened, and the cop gets blown out into the street by his car. His car gets flipped over. Cop dies from this thing. Dad is dead. Cop is now dead. We don't know what happened to the neighbor guy, who was last seen laying on the ground, kind of like freaking out a little bit. And the brothers grab their stuff, which is the older brother was going to a party that night, so he's got a backpack with some stuff in it, and they leave. And then the game picks up a couple of days later with the boys out on the road walking, and the news in Seattle, I believe, is where they were at. The news in Seattle is that a cop is dead, a man is dead, a cop is dead, the man's two kids are missing. What happened? And why did these two kids kill this cop? Like, that's basically it. Man, we don't know what happened, but those fucking kids killed this cop and now they're wanted. It was a bit of a weak stretch in terms of creating a story like this. So you go through the 5-chapter setup like is in these Life is Strange style games, Telltale games, etc., etc. And at the end, after all this shit that you've went through, and there's a lot of stuff, I'm going to leave out a bunch of that stuff in case you're still here but you want to play the game and you don't know. but you are trying to get to Mexico, to where your dad used to live. And when you get to the border, even at the border, shenanigans happen to these poor fucking kids. And they're in a car, and they're driving towards the border, and the cops are there at the gate. There was a part a little bit earlier when they got to the wall in Texas, or well, I guess in this one they were in Arizona or something like that. Anyway, the wall, the goddamn wall that everybody's fucking freaking out about. They get to the wall, and the younger brother's powers are enhanced at this point. And I'm thinking, ooh, they're in a vehicle. Little brother is going to use his powers to lift the vehicle up and take him up over the wall, and they'll be done. No, couldn't be that easy. They have to get out and look at the wall and talk for a moment. And you're like, the cops are on their tail. Hurry the hell up and get through this thing. I was like, I know it's a video game and things don't ever work out, but I was like, come on, we got to do this. I'm rooting for him. And what happens but some stupid dumbass hicks at the border who are like makeshift volunteer border patrol. They shoot at these two kids without seeing who they are and what they're doing. They shoot at these two fucking kids. And I think the younger brother had used his telekinetic abilities to tear open the wall, enough room for them to drive their vehicle through. But of course their vehicle's way back there. Like they have to walk a good, 100 feet or something like that to get to it. They're walking back and they're talking, and that's when these border patrol idiots shoot first and ask questions never. And it just grazes the younger brother's shoulder. And that's when the actual cops came and got them. They ended up back at some small podunk town's little jail. They break out using their abilities, and they go back to the wall. But they don't go back to the hole in the wall that they were responsible for opening. They instead go down the regular highway to one of the main entry points. And of course, there's a bunch of cops and FBI agents there waiting for them. So once again, I'm thinking, is this where they get smart and they use their ability to float over them? They could have had a fucking E.T. moment and went right over the damn thing. But no, they're like, we're just going to plow through all these cops, cop cars, people with guns, and the gate, the entry point gate or whatever that's closed. Or maybe it wasn't closed, I don't remember, but it was obvious that there was a bunch of shit they would have to go through. And Big Brother says to Little Brother, help me get through this. And I think depending on choices that you've made, relationship points between the older brother and the younger brother has the option to say okay and use his powers, which once again, like I said, in that very moment I thought he's going to use the powers to lift us up and over all this resistance that we're getting. But no, in the game he's like Jedi mind powers these people, cops and everything out of the way, and the implication even there was that some of them were badly injured or even killed by doing that. So in my game, I think younger brother did that, and I was pissed because I was like, that was not what I meant. I wanted you to lift us up and over. But there was still enough time in this sequence for little brother to be like, I don't want to do this. I'm tired of hurting people with my powers. And he fucking bails out of the car, and Big Brother looks back and drives on through to Mexico. And then you get ending credits and ending scenes that pick up years later, where younger brother has grown up and I think is even just out of high school, and gets a letter from his big brother from Mexico. And this girl who was in the mix during the course of the game has come down, and Big Brother and this girl that he kind of hooked up with are together, and you would assume they're happy and everything, but it was still, I didn't think that was the greatest ending, that little brother and big brother were separated after all that shit that they went through after their dad died. I was kind of pissed that the obvious thing to do, the game was like, nope, we can't do that. We have to fuck with you at the very end. This is what brings the game down, or to me, like Life is Strange and Before the Storm are like 9.5 games. This is like a 7, because you can still have the stress, you can still have the gameplay, prolonged story things, but you could also make sense. You could have people do things that make sense. So like I said, I wasn't super satisfied with that ending, so I went back to the last save, or the last checkpoint, which was at that moment at the gate, at the wall, and I was like, well, maybe we'll make a different choice. Maybe this time we'll give up, and we'll see what happens if we give up. We don't push our younger brother to use his powers in ways that hurt people. We don't run. We don't have him bailing out of the car on us. And we don't have them separated for all those years while one's in Mexico and the other one's back with grandparents. So I thought, all right, let's see what happens if we give up in that moment, because you had the option to give up or make your escape. Giving up sucked ass even more, because neither of these two fucking kids did anything. There's no... The younger brother's telekinetic outburst was not purposeful or planned. He didn't deliberately say, I want to kill this cop with this. He expressed his anger with something he didn't know that was within him, and the cop, the pussy-ass cop with the itchy trigger finger, dies because of it. Okay, that makes sense too. The older brother goes to jail for like a long time. I want to say it was somewhere between like 15 to 20 years. And there's no evidence. There was no way there was any evidence that the older brother did anything, that the younger brother did anything. It was unexplained, and they were minors. And this kid goes to jail for all this fucking time. It pissed me off so much. That second ending was horseshit. He goes to jail. His younger brother goes to stay with their grandparents. Grows up, graduates, goes to college or whatever, seems to have a happy life, has his powers and abilities under control, and older brother rots in fucking prison. And he gets out of prison, and he's picked up by his grandma and his younger brother, and for a brief moment I was like, well, maybe he's going to come out of this and he's going to be all right. No, there's some sequences of them like going to places that they had went to when they were on the run, and they go to the campsite that they stayed on that like second night after they left Seattle. The first real glimpses of what his brother could do before they go to this other place and have a weird interaction. And they are in separate vehicles, and they leave. And older brother is just like depressed as fuck, and younger brother is sad too. And they go their separate ways, and that's how the game ends. I was like, I usually try to be really open-minded about how a game ends, because in my opinion, if I'm having fun, like Far Cry 5 for example, we're still in spoiler territory. I would imagine if anybody's worried about spoilers, you're not still watching at this point. But in Far Cry 5, you spend that whole entire game trying to infiltrate and bring to justice this crazy cult in Montana. And at the very end of it, you end up trapped with the leader of that group, running towards a nuclear fallout shelter because the bombs have just dropped on the country, and you are now trapped with this guy at the end, and he all along that this bad thing was going to happen. I'm like, as much as I loved the gameplay loop of that game, and the characters were all pretty good, and it was set in Montana, I lived there for years, the ending didn't bother me because I was like, I enjoyed every other bit of this, that if it wanted to slap me in the face a little bit with kind of a downer ending, cool. Watch Stephen King's The Mist movie. That'll punch you in the gut. I liked that. There are other games that are games. There have been other games, and there have been plenty of movies that don't have happy endings, and I really appreciate that. But in this game, it was just downright unfair, and it just doesn't jibe with what I recognize Life is Strange games as being, which is they can be emotional roller coasters, but they still kind of have, I don't know, I guess maybe they don't always really have great endings. You can have a decent ending in the original Life is Strange, or you can have one that's kind of a downer, and then the ending to Before the Storm is kind of down as well, but you knew what was happening there. I don't know, there was just, for me, there was something in the tone of Life is Strange 2, the endings of the game and all that kind of stuff, that I was a little stunned by, to be honest. Still, like I said, a really good game. And after I was done with it, I was thinking about it. Like, for days, I was thinking about those characters and what they went through, and those moments along the way where I was like, man, I desire a second playthrough of that one sooner rather than later, to see if I can have the relationship between the two brothers be a little bit better at the end. Because when you see those choices that you could have made at the end of the thing, it was obvious that my gameplay, my playthrough of it, the brothers were a little on edge with each other instead of as tight and as close as they could have been. Anyway, so that was Life is Strange 2. The next thing that I played was Far Cry New Dawn. I don't think I really have much to say about New Dawn. I loved the fact that they had a regular numbered entry in the series, and then they had a direct sequel. 3 had Blood Dragon, which was an offshoot game, nothing to do really with 3. Far Cry 4 had Far Cry Primal, but the only reason why those were connected in any way was just because they used the exact same map for Primal, but they didn't really say because it was set in the same place. It was more of a small spin-off game that they ended up developing into a full game from what I read. And then 5 has New Dawn, and that's an actual direct sequel. So I appreciate that, but overall I don't really think I have a whole lot of thoughts to say about New Dawn, and I do want to talk about the only other game that I finished in October, which was my horror game, which was Maid of Sker, M-A-I-D of S-K-E-R, a short, kind of almost walking simulator style horror game, although it did have a little bit in the way of puzzle solving and enemy evasion. I don't think it had any... Oh, yeah, it didn't have any... You didn't attack enemies, but I felt like it kind of borrowed the concept that a game like Amnesia did, where in Amnesia you couldn't look at certain main enemies. If you looked at them, your sanity would go down and they would detect that you were there. If you didn't look at them, your sanity would stay in check and they just didn't notice you. It was a really cool and unique concept and a unique game mechanic. In Maid of Sker, what they had was all of these antagonists, NPCs, enemies, whatever, were blind, but they could hear you. Obviously their hearing was enhanced, and so what you would have to do is, if you ever got close to them, you had a button you would have to press to hold your breath. Your character would go, and then they wouldn't breathe, And there were even some places on the map where there'd be dust particles in the air, and if you didn't stop your breathing, the your character would cough, and then they would know where you were, and they'd come and attack you. And you could die, and your only, like I said, your only course of action was to run. If that happened, you'd have to run and get away from them. So it created some tense moments. The game was set in, like, I want to say like 1899 or somewhere around the turn of that century. You are a guy who's going to, it's like a European country. You're trying to find your wife, who went to this hotel and is being trapped and held there by her father and her uncle, who've gone a little mad due to interactions with sirens, like the actual siren, mythological creature type sirens, the beautiful women that sing the songs that cause the boats to crash, and they're not actually beautiful women, they're these flesh-eating creatures or whatever. And then in this game they've like captured one, and they're trying to use her vocal abilities and harness that power or whatever. One thing I wanted to point out on it was one of the scary games I wanted to try to play for October was Soma, which is a game from the makers of Amnesia. The writer of Soma was the writer of this game, or a writer of this game. And some of the story elements was like, yeah, okay, I get it. That person who wrote Soma was really, really good. Some of the stuff in Made of Skur was really, really good. But overall, Soma is a much better game than Made of Skur. But I still enjoyed it. For a spooky game, it had its tense moments. It got a little freaky, a little psychological at times. But at other times, you were just wandering around trying not to get attacked and killed by these creatures. These people who've been changed because of this dabbling with the powers of these sirens. The graphics were not, they didn't remind me of PS4, Xbox One generation graphics. They were a little bit older. Oh, and I got what I felt like were influences and things borrowed from the Call of Cthulhu Four Corners of the Earth or Four Corners of the World game that's on the original Xbox. Some of the character models and movements reminded me of that. I'm pretty sure that game was one of the first games that I ever saw where you could go inside of a room or go inside of a closet or a bathroom stall or something like that, and there'd be a little lock that you could lock so that enemies that were coming after you either couldn't open the door or it would hold them up a little bit longer as they tried to bang their way in. There were moments like that in this game, and maybe I'm the only one who's getting that from it. Maybe they had no influence whatsoever from that, but I still felt like that was something that I could see in it. Some sort of an influence or a reminder of that. And yeah, I guess that's about it. I beat that on the 24th, and then within that week afterwards was when I started playing Far Cry 6. I'm going to have a lot more to talk about with Far Cry 6 once I beat it. So I imagine that's going to be in the November monthly roundup. But I just want to say that I love the game so far. I'm pretty sure it's the biggest world that the world map or whatever that a Far Cry game has had. My only complaints are a few little tiny things that they took out. I mean, there's no radio towers anymore, and that's such a Ubisoft Far Cry game cliche, but I really enjoyed the radio towers and climbing up and doing that, and it helped to open up the map. They kind of eliminated that, at least by Far Cry Primal or Far Cry 5. But the Far Cry games have always had outposts, like literally, just this is an outpost, kill all the people in there, go hard and just blow them all away, or use stealth. I loved being able to kind of jump into them and do them any way that I wanted to. This one has things like what they call checkpoints, but there are only a couple of people, and it takes literally like 60 seconds to kill everything and blow up a sign of Anton Castillo, the dictator from the game, and claim the checkpoint as your own, even though it's a checkpoint, and enemy trucks continue to flow through there all the damn time. There are military bases and stations and places where the military have taken over, like a university or a museum, library, or whatever kind of place. And you can still take those on like an outpost, but the outpost thing is just completely gone from this. And as silly as it may sound, one of the things that I loved in these games was you'd take on an outpost or you'd kill some enemies and you'd go up to them and press a button and you'd loot them of whatever stuff that they had. And you always pressed and held the button to do the motion. In this game, you just have to stand close to them and you just automatically get the stuff. The game gives you a lot of things at the beginning and makes it really easy for you to have really awesome and crazy over-the-top weapons, access to vehicles, and all kinds of other stuff. And I like that, but I don't like them just getting rid of that. There's something about that force feedback of pressing that button, seeing the animation, seeing the stuff that you looted. It's baked into the Far Cry games, and it's baked into my brain at this point. And I was just sort of disappointed that that was something that they chose to get rid of. And the other thing, I was just thinking about it. I have to try to remember. Oh. All of the Far Cry games before, in some way, shape, or form, gave you people to run with. The guns for hire were just like these random NPCs who would come fight for you. And I want to say that Far Cry 5 and New Dawn, I think, were the first ones to say, you can go help this person, and then if you do whatever mission that it is that they want you to do, they will run with you. And you can call them in or swap them out for somebody else. And you would get like 6 or 8 different options. Some humans, some animals. You got dogs and bears and several different kinds of people. There was a character named Herc that shows up in like a bunch of the different games. And Far Cry 6 just said, nope, we're not going to do it that way. In this one, we're going to have what's called amigos, and they're only going to be animals. I never ran with animals. I didn't give a shit about having a fucking bear that would come along and maul people or a dog or whatever. I felt like, as animals are, they're dumb, although they are intelligent, but they're dumb in that they don't take direct orders the way that if I say, hey, I need you to go over there and do this thing, and that person says, okay, I'm going to go do this thing. And then they have a mind of their own and kind of take care of things on their own. I feel like sometimes the animals sort of have to be directed, and I don't want to juggle all that in the game. I don't want to be constantly telling my... Yeah, also, in this game, when I'm trying to tell one of my animals to go attack a certain person, sometimes it's not pinpoint enough that suddenly it's me telling my animal to go 30 yards on the other side of the enemy. I just hated that they took away the human companions. I like to run with a human, a good sniper, a hunter with a bow or something like that. Somebody with a rocket launcher. Whatever trips my fancy in that moment of the game. Somebody who kind of responds to things. They may not have scripted storyline stuff to go on, but the humans always kind of responded to things. And the animals don't. And the selection of animals so far in Far Cry 6 has not really impressed me. And there's so many vehicles in the Far Cry games that have a gun in the back. Well, a fucking little dog with a little wheelchair, little chorizo here, he's not going to get up in that fucking gunner thing and shoot people for me as we're traveling around. Like driving. If we're if we're on foot in a thing, the dog kind of distracts. There's Guapo, the croc or whatever that attacks people, and then right now I've been running with Chicharron, which is one of these cockfighting roosters. The chicken's okay, but like I said, none of them are going to get into a vehicle that has a gun, a place in the back for a gun, like it has a gun mounted on it, and your secondary person can be shooting people and vehicles as we're traveling around. None of these animals can do anything like that, and it's such a shame to leave the vehicles with the guns on there. And I'm just like, gosh, we're driving across the map to get to the next objective, but there's some bad guys over there, so it would be nice if I had my backup here shooting at them so I can drive. I know there's automatic driving and all that, but it's just not as much fun, in my opinion, to go on auto drive and then only be able to shoot with your pistol. So that's my one complaint so far with Far Cry 6, but it is still a super fun game. Ubisoft, in my opinion, can't go wrong when it comes to the Far Cry series. The Far Cry games always come out, and they're always super fun. I'm already anticipating whatever next thing they'll be, whether it'll be another in-between game or they'll just roll on into Far Cry 7. I look forward to it eagerly. And I think that's going to do it. The battery is getting ready to die in the camera once more. But that's all the things that I've played so far in the month. And so that's it. So anyway, thanks guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.